Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome, friends and family around the world. Welcome to the Energetic Life Now show. I am your host, Eric Stenlake. It is such an honor and privilege to have you here, whether this is your first time or you're catching replay. So glad to have you guys here. Today's show is being brought to us all on the Spanglish World and Her networks on Zingo TV, channel 250 and 251. If you haven't had time to download the app yet, please go ahead and do so. It is free, and you can download it to your respective iOS and Android devices. Zingo TV is also on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire TV sticks, Roku, and Roku sticks, and of course on all smart TVs 2016 and forward. Well, friends and family, here we are again for another fabulous show. And let's welcome back to the show the amazing, the magnificent, the incredible Laura Ollinger. Woo! Great to have you back, Laura. And for those of you that recognize her or are seeing her for the first time, you can find Laura doing her amazing work on positively healthy coaching and positively healthy mom Facebook page and TV show as well. So, Laura, it's great to have you back. Love having you here. What's shaking and baking in your woods today?
Well, thanks, Eric. It's great to be here. Yeah, I'm excited to have our conversation today. And in my neck of the woods, what we're dealing with right now is the exciting football season in our local community. We've got our homecoming parade today, which I'll go see my daughter in on her float with her track team, and then we've got the football game Friday. So we're all in on football here in Texas right now.
Oh, there you go. It is that time of year. I think it was about a week ago or so. We had it here in California and homecoming, and we have a park down the street. So that's like the go-to place for pictures because it's up on the bluffs over the water. And so great picturesque place for all the kids to take their pictures. So wherever you are around the world, if you're in on the homecoming, football and parades and floats and all kinds of good fun, we're right there with you. It's that fun time of year. Mm-hmm. So listen, friends and family, today having Laura here, we really wanted to bring some thoughts and ideas around what we do as teen and parent and family coaches. And really dive into a really, really fun place of looking at and beginning to unpack how you're doing as a family. What are the things that are working? What are the things that you're having struggles and challenges with? And if you saw on the social media when we were posting about the show, I said that we were going to be really looking at a couple of key areas here: dependency, entitlement, and engagement. And as we're looking at these places, of course, when people come to Laura and I and they're like, hey, we really could use some support as a family, right? The number one thing Laura and I really lead off with here is, what do they want, right? And so we jump into that. We begin unpacking that with the family, and Laura can attest to this. Is majority of the time when we say, what do you want, immediately the thought process goes to what they don't want.
Totally.
Yeah, right. And so they say, well, we don't want this, we don't want that. And okay, let's pause there and let's begin focusing on what we do want. Mm-hmm. And really, when you're looking at the aging process of kids, right, we talk about the transitions from different time periods, age period, maturity, development stages with kids. There's challenges and learning that happens for all of them along the way in that journey. So let's first of all look at the word dependency. And I'm laughing about this because I know for me and Jen and our three kids, we set the standard early on that we were not going to raise dependent kids, meaning that we were going to be doing everything for them and just sit down and don't worry about it. And we would be handling, everything for them. And But then, hopefully they would be out of our, out of our home in a timely manner and beginning to go live life on their own at some point in time. Now, Laura, tell me a little bit about your process with your kids. How dependent do you or did you want your kids to be as you're thinking back? Okay, they're little kids or they're starting to grow up into toddlers and elementary age. Let's start there. How dependent did you want your kids to be?
From an early age, I feel like I did always encourage independence as much as possible. And I actually remember touring a Montessori preschool.
Mm,
I remember feeling concerned with their method. And since then, by the way, I'm not dissing Montessori school at all. I highly agree with their methods. I've studied them. But at the time when I had little ones, I felt like concerned because I remember I said, well, who helps them when they need to go to the bathroom? And I remember the teacher said, oh, no, we don't help. And I was like, what? How are they going to, that's really too hard for them. They shouldn't.
yes.
They need help. They're little
Mhm,
and they're
mhm.
like, "Oh no, they'll figure it out." And I like that shocked me and it blew me away and in a way terrified me. I'm like, "These poor kids, they're not getting any assistance at all and they're struggling in their pants and they're feeling frustrated and all this stuff." And so, long story short, we didn't end up going there, but that stuck with me for a long time
Yeah.
because now I see and I've studied that method of education and now I see the value that provides by putting our kids in a situation of struggle
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
challenge and allowing them to struggle and allowing them to build that resilience muscle. So
Yes.
I guess to answer your question, when my kids were real little, I really had a hard time with that. I didn't want to let go. I wanted to make it easy and not have them struggle. I didn't want them to be upset. And as they've kind of grown, now they're teenagers, I see the strong benefit of, and part of it is that I have 4 kids. So I really can't be there doing everything for everybody. It would be impossible. There's no way it's just physically impossible. So, I taught my kids to do their laundry a long time ago. And
Hmm.
because I had 4 kids, I can't do all that laundry. That's too much for me.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so I think just like as I've progressed as a mom, I've let them have way more responsibility, way more freedom. I'm very hands off, even like with checking grades. I have a lot of clients whose the parents are kind of compulsively hyper vigilant
Yes.
about checking every day or reading every single notification, getting in touch with their kids. Hey, why do you have this missing assignment? And I'll tell you, my kids don't hear from me. And the reason why is because I trust they're doing what they need to do. If they have any problems, they'll come ask me. If they have any struggles, they'll say, hey, mom, I don't understand the Spanish homework or whatever. Can you help me?
Mhm.
Other than that, I'm pretty hands off and I kind of just like support and I encourage. But I've seen the value in how my kids are very, very, very self sufficient. And that even means in the kitchen too. If they're hungry and I'm working and I can't, help them, they'll go make their own. My youngest daughter can make a whole meal from start to finish, a whole dinner and she's now 11, but she's been doing that for a couple of years. So
Yeah.
you got me ramped up because I'm very passionate about this topic.
I love it. I love it. That's so great.
Yeah.
And you brought up so many good points, right? We have to allow them to build that resiliency, right? Meaning, and parents, sometimes this is hard for us because we want to protect, we want to nurture, and sometimes that can lead us into a space of which we become that helicopter, lawnmower, snowplow, whatever metaphor you want to put there,
Mhm.
as a parent, in that we do too much for them,
Mhm.
right? And on the other side of that is I could just like, okay, hey, you can walk, great, good luck to you. I'm out of here. You take care of yourself now. Well,
Right.
no, that's not realistic either,
Right.
right? And so we want to find that medium ground
Mhm.
and understand that there are times in our lives where our kids need us, right? And are dependent for things. And we step in and we can teach, we can guide, we can have conversations with them, because I don't want to get those texts right from the other room. I'm hungry, because they know my response back is, "Hi, hungry. How are you today?" Right? They know they're going to get that response from me,
Yeah.
right? And then they're like, "Bruh,
Mm.
I'm starving." Well, there's a refrigerator in here. I'm sure there's food in it.
Mhm.
Well, it's nothing. I don't like anything in the fridge. I don't like any of the food you guys buy. You buy the worst food ever. Well, you're welcome to go buy your own food.
There you go.
You're welcome, or you can come in and find something that will be suitable to you to eat, right? And so we look at that's those stages of dependency, and having the realistic expectations that we put on our kids, and allowing them to fail.
Mhm.
And this is where we get into, okay, if you're a helicopter parent, a snowplow parent, a lawnmower parent, basically meaning you're plowing down everything in your kid's path to make life easy for them,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so we want to be cautious not to do that and allow our kids to scrape their knees, to fall down, to understand they can get back up and keep going. Because we do need them to learn, right? We do need them to experience these things, because when they get out on their own, or later on in transition, we don't want them to be so scared to make decisions without us that then they get stuck in doing nothing at all.
Mhm.
So I love what you're saying. Like, my kids wash their own clothes, they make food, they can do this, they can do that, right? Boom, we're in that. All right. So now let's move into this middle section, which cause and effect. If I am allowing my kids to be super dependent on me and I'm doing everything for them, now we're into this middle part here where I'm calling this the entitlement area.
Mm. Okay.
The expectations are, I need this. Now, parent is going to do this for me. And they begin to lose the perspective of, I can do this, or I will try this, or I'm going to attempt to do this, to I'm now entitled and I expect them
Mhm.
to do that for me. So think about your kids, right? You're busy. You're on a show. You've got clients or whatnot.
Mhm.
If your kids are entitled, meaning they're expecting you to put a plate of food down in front of them every night and not take on roles and responsibilities, how does that entitlement come into play?
Well, I'm sorry because my mind is going somewhere else with this. So
Oh,
I
go ahead. Go ahead. No. Go right ahead.
focus on the question. However, what is coming up for me is, what that means. And so, what I've seen with clients and parents of clients,
Mhm. Mhm.
and also I have had conversations with my own kids about certain things. And a lot of times, what is hard is when a kid is very dependent on their parents, and that continues through their adolescent years. And so then when the parent is ready to take away some of that and try to encourage more independence, it backfires, because what they don't realize is that suddenly it feels like a loss of love. It's like the
Mm.
teenagers, like, but in their
Yeah.
mind, subconsciously, they're like, yes, but when you do this for me, it means you love me. So now
Mhm.
that you've stopped doing it, I don't feel loved anymore. And so
Mm.
I think that that's something that's like kind of important to bring to the surface,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
because you can really create more challenges by trying to create this independence. It can actually kind of cause, so what I would do, and again, I'm sorry I'm not really answer your question, but I'm veering off on my own here, is to have a conversation with your teenager, whoever we're talking about here. I know I had one recently with my boys because of my busy schedule in the morning. I have a lot of different driving. I do 4 kids, 3 schools, but both boys,
Yeah.
even though both boys are at the same school, they're on different sports schedules. So I'm
Mm.
busy in the morning. And so I have my little routine of like breakfast, like who I'm making what for and how it's done. And I talked to them recently because there's a few times where I can't do that. And they're like, but mom, well, one of them said, but mom, you didn't make us breakfast. And I was like, yes, but you're perfectly capable of making your own breakfast. I've seen you do it many
Yeah.
times.
Yeah.
So I'm really curious, what does that mean for you when I make your breakfast?
Hmm.
Of course, he wasn't immediately able to articulate, I feel loved when you make my breakfast, or even the fact that I'm just a sleepy, exhausted teenager who's been up late doing homework. And so when you make my breakfast, it makes my morning easier. No
Yeah.
matter what the meaning of it for him was, bringing that to the surface instead of me just like barking back orders, well, make your own breakfast, or me saying, or me caving in the opposite direction and saying, oh, honey, of course I'll make your breakfast all the time. I'll have it sitting out for you and it'll be toasty warm in the oven. And when you wake up, like, right, we're not over parenting, we're not under parenting, we're finding that neutral ground. And of
Hmm.
course, I know he's capable of doing it, but to like find out what it meant to him, and then for me to then express what it means to me, for him to be able, right? It's all about having that conversation. And a lot of people just don't think to do that. And so
Yeah.
that's why, again, like I said, it can backfire when kids who have been extremely dependent start, facing the harsh truth of, oh, they actually have to, do things for themselves. And then it really puts a strain on the relationship.
Hmm. Oh man, that was absolute gold. Thank you so much for going that direction. That was spot on.
Mm.
I loved everything that you said there. That was really fantastic. I think what you were saying right there at the end, where love shows up is me saying, I understand and I hear and value what me doing this for you means to you.
Mm.
And I need you to understand also is that I would really value and appreciate your input here to do and take on more responsibility yourself to
Mhm.
do this in your learning process so that you can begin learning how to navigate your schedule and how to not be dependent on me or rely on me to do those things.
Mhm.
Because I could tell you, my middle son, he is a master delegator.
That's awesome. That's a great
And
skill to have. Let me
it
tell you.
is. It is when it's done right. Because his alarm will go off. I'll hear him getting up, and then the texts start coming in. Dad, can you get this? Dad, can you get that? And I'm like, no, I cannot. Like I'm busy doing stuff too, bro.
Mhm.
Like
Mhm.
I got things going on already. And so we had those conversations about, differences between delegating and not taking responsibility to do and not taking on
Mhm.
that, right? And so then he will he'll rely on me, and then that becomes that sense of entitlement
Mhm.
of if I get up and do this, my dad's going to do this for me,
Right.
and then those expectations come in to that. So I heard a really interesting thing today that I thought fit into this really really well is when we're setting expectations in the family around chores or roles and responsibilities and things like that. More often than not, we we attach a consequence to a chore. If this doesn't get done, then you lose
Mm.
privileges or you lose the ability to do.
Mhm.
And you know what? I've heard this a couple of times recently, and which I've really kind of gone and done some reflection on. Like, did that really work for my kids?
Mm. Mhm.
In the past. Like, okay, we had the chore chart, right, in the kitchen. We had little magnets that they could move around and we wrote it on and they thought it was really cool when they were, 3 and 5 and, you know, doing that whole bit. And in the reflection pieces, did that really work? Did
Mm.
they understand the why it
Mhm.
was important for them to engage in helping out around the family? And I often wonder what would be different if we hadn't put an attached consequence to that.
Oh, I see what you're
And if we had just said, hey, we really could use your help. Can you guys take care of cleaning up? We called it the toy room, right? Clean
saying.
up the toy room. And in the backyard, at the end of the day, you got to put your bikes away and your skateboards and yada yada,
Mhm.
and make it nice, right? Would that have had a different outcome on that if we had not said, okay, you didn't do your chores, so you can't have technology, you
Mhm.
can't have TV time, you
Mhm.
can't have that treat or something of that nature. What in your experience of working with families and even your own, or even in your own kids, has that ever come up when you're working with parents, or thinking about yourself in terms of that? Because that's really been kind of sitting with me lately. Like, did we do the right thing? Right? Hindsight's always 2020, but this is a little clouded for me. Like,
Mm.
did we do the right thing with the consequence piece of it?
Um, well, I first time I'm a believer that there's no one size fits all.
Mm,
So what worked or didn't work for one family isn't necessarily the true for another family. I don't necessarily like to make blanket rules
yeah.
because the problem is we're not seeing the whole picture. So for example, like I said, my kids do their own laundry, and so therefore I don't have a specific dishes requirement for them, whereas other families might say, oh no, we have a schedule and this dishes is right, like, so it's
Yeah.
different because I need, right, like it's just our needs are different. So
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
that. But as far as like what you're saying is a positive reward or a negative consequence, generally, I think speaking, they say that the positive reward is more intrinsically motivating. I think that
Hmm.
there are some, scientific studies proving that as far as just human behavior. Um, but again, I would say it kind of depends on even the individual kid within a family. Like one kid's personality might be more driven by
Yeah.
reward, and another kid's personality might be driven more by the fear of the consequence. So, you know,
That I'm laughing because you just described two of my three kids. Absolutely, totally, totally. Like
yeah,
one would be like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go do it." The other one would be like, "Nah, I don't think I'm gonna do that. I
yeah.
think I'm just gonna sit here and then I'll try to bribe my brother to do to
Mhm.
do this
Oh,
for me."
yeah.
Right.
Mhm.
And I love what you were saying about the intrinsic motivation, right? I think this comes from that internal representation within a family, of their contribution and efforts to really make an impact, whether they understand it at an early age or not,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And so we I'm going to switch us a little bit and transition into kind of in the teenage years, because this is a story that I tell all the time when I'm doing live workshops, with adults, that people look at me like I got three heads.
Mhm.
So you're gonna crack up.
Okay.
We got to that place as the kids were kind of in that middle school, late elementary, middle school area, right?
Mhm.
Kids were supposed to unload the dishwashers. Kids were going to reload, yada yada. They understood that both mom and I were working, and yada, everything was all a part of helping out.
Mhm.
And the day that we realized that the dishes there was a full sink of dishes, the dishwasher was dirty, hadn't even been run. So now we got two loads ready to rock, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then we're looking at like, well, we don't have enough clean silverware, we don't have plates,
Mhm.
things, for dinner. What are we gonna do? And so Jen and I looked at this learning process of they've got to understand and feel a little sting from this, and but we didn't want to make this a consequence in a negative. We wanted to switch that paradigm, if you will, and make it a learning process of, yet it was going to be a little bit of fun thrown in there as well. So we got a big roast. Boom, got this roast cooking in the crock pot. The whole house is smelling delicious. This meat's cooking all day. The kids are super excited. They're texting from the other room instead of walking in to say the house smells so great. We can't wait. Are we having mashed potatoes? Can we have broccoli? Yada yada. And yeah, Jen and I are getting all ready, right? So what we do then is we take this roast and we just dump it in the middle of the kitchen table. meat juice going all over the place, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Take the potatoes, scooping them out on the table,
Mhm.
making a little mashed potato volcanoes,
Yes.
dumping the gravy in, right? We got the broccoli there, right? This kid's got a spoon, that kid's got a plastic fork, that person's got a knife. They got all kinds of weirdness on the table. It's kind of dirty and crusty because nobody had cleaned the table, but we
Mhm.
had to be okay with this in this learning experience, right?
Mhm.
The kids, we call them for dinner. They come in and they sit down and they are looking at us like we are nuts.
Mhm.
Our
Mhm.
parents have officially lost their minds. Like, we're going to have to call somebody to come in. We're going to have a family intervention. Our parents are loopy.
Mhm.
And they sit down and they're like, what the heck is going on? We're like, well, we're sorry. There's not clean dishes. There's not clean silverware. Things didn't get done. And you know what? Hey, there's some places in the world where silverware maybe isn't used and people
Mhm.
eat with their fingers, or, what did they do before silverware? I think we can do this too.
Mhm.
So grabbing meat, slopping it around in the gravy and the meat. And they're like, oh my gosh, my
Mhm.
parents, what are we going to do with these people? And so we turned that a whole experience into a learning of which then they understood
Yeah.
why it's so important for them to agree upon doing these things that are going to help and support the family,
Right. And
because they don't want to sit down to
no.
that ever again.
No.
And they never have.
No, and the thing is, they will never forget that. That
Yeah.
is such a powerful and impactful, experience to be in firsthand. Like hearing it, I am like, can I picture this? But like being there and seeing it, I can't. It's like a whole nother level.
Yeah, yeah. So parent, listen. If things aren't getting done, I understand. Both of us, we understand how frustrating that can be,
Mhm.
right? We
Mhm.
we totally get it. Look for those opportunities of which you can get into a supportive uh, role as an adult leader in the family, learner in the family. It's not all hierarchy. We can create this experience together of which we can say, listen, we need these things done. How can we solve this together?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And I thinking about and of course obviously the chores are the easiest things to do, but we also can look at this, and I heard this today, which I thought was awesome too. It's the tell, show, do, go. Let me say that again: tell, show, do, and go.
Mhm.
So when we're talking to kids, there's going to be times where they're dependent on us to tell them how to do something, to show them how to do something, and they might need that repeated based on the age, right?
Mhm.
There's times of which we need to do it with them because they might not understand, and then there's that time of which we say, now go and do this, you don't need my help anymore.
Mhm.
Think through the process, think through the steps of which need to happen. And so this is the third part of this where we're going to be talking about the engagement. So now we're transitioning from dependency to entitlement into engagement. And in that piece, we want the members of the family here to engage in doing and thinking and coming up with strategies that are going to best work for you and your family, to come up with systems and processes that you're agreeing together collectively to say, this is what's going to work for us. Because like you said a minute ago, it's not a one size fits all.
Right.
Every family is different. Every individual member is different.
Mhm.
And how do we take those differences and put it into a collective win as a family? So, even though my kids are older, my one son really appreciates on Thursday nights just a text that says trash.
Hmm.
That's his reminder that the house trash needs to get out to the cans to the street.
Mhm.
And so that's the system of which we set up,
Okay.
right?
Mhm.
And so here's what I want to ask you then, Laura, is thinking about working with some of your parents and the teens that you work with, or your own kids,
Mhm.
thinking about the telling, the showing, the doing, and the go, right? How does that come into play at you seen either personally or professionally? And what are any challenges, anything that you've had to kind of go back and kind of navigate through, if you will, to make those changes so collectively you find that win?
Totally. Yeah. So I actually learned this from, I believe, I like to give credit to the proper author, but I believe it was Dr. Lisa DeMoore. She's a, very famous teenage psychologist. And I hope it was her. But anyway, I read that no, maybe it wasn't. But anyway, let's just go with that. She was talking about a parent and a son whose son was maybe college age.
Mm-hmm.
He said that the mom was so frustrated that the college age kid wouldn't make their own appointment or cancel their own appointment to the dentist.
Yeah.
And she's like, you're like 19 years old. How can you not cancel or reschedule it? Something like that. And so the recommendation was that, she modeled that. And so, the tell, show, do, go, it's a kind of a loose basis of this, but what she did was she put it on speakerphone. She called the dentist's office. She rescheduled the appointment with her son sitting right there so that he could listen to everything that was being said. And when the conversation was over, he apparently said, "Oh, well, they weren't mad." And the mom said, "Well, no, why would they be mad? We were doing them a favor. We were rescheduling. Like, dentist appointments get so frustrated when they have no shoes."
Yeah.
And so he goes, "Oh, I thought they were going to be mad." And like, he had a story in his head that the way the conversation would go. And that's why he was too afraid to do it. And he wouldn't do it. And so when the mom then showed him how to do it, then in the future, the kid was able to do it and, do it and then go do it. I'm trying to follow your steps, tell, show, do, go. And so I've actually used that so many times for my clients with the parents who they get frustrated with their teenager who can drive. They can they're perfectly capable of taking themselves to their doctor's appointment, and have to sign a form that, the teenager's allowed to be there without the parent. And I had a client who said, "But I don't want to do that because A, I don't know how to discuss my medication with the doctor, and B, I don't know how to pay." And so we broke down those steps. And so that was what I did help with that. And I did talk to the dad about it. I helped the daughter with that. And we kind of broke it down. I said, "Look, if she watches you do it, then she'll know how to do it next time.
Yeah.
And then she can be more independent. She can do it that night and she can engage in her own life. She's 16, she can do it." Right. And so we've done that. And so this particular client, she really didn't like to call anytime, kids, they want to text everything and they want everything to be online. They don't like to make phone calls. Right. And so for her, I said, "Well, what if you just started by I'm like, have you ever ordered a pizza on the phone?" And she's like, "No, I haven't." Because, A, you can order pizza online, but B, she just has never needed to do that. And I said, "Well, what if you just started there? What could possibly go wrong with ordering a pizza? What do you think will happen? Walk me through what you think the conversation will be." And she said, literally, we role played it out. And then she said, "Well, I just don't know how to do the paying part. Will they just ask for the credit card number?" I'm like, "Yep." And she's like, "Oh, okay." Right. But see, here's the problem, Eric. Sometimes adults take that for granted that the teenager or the adolescent, whatever age we're at, college age, young adult,
Right.
that they know how to do something. And a lot of times there's some type of fear, but they don't know what the fear is. And so they're getting mad. But really, if you just walk through the steps literally, and that's what we do. That's, as a coach, that's what I help them do. Walk through the steps and figure out what the snag is. And in her situation, she's like, "Well, I just don't know how to pay." Well, once she figured it out, she's like, "Oh, I can do that."
Yeah. Yeah. That's fantastic. Yeah. I love that, especially with the pizza, right? To us, it's a no brainer. Adults, canceling an appointment, it's a no brainer. It's easy. Why? Because we've done it how many times? Right. And so we got to put ourselves in the shoes of the kids and to understand where, like you said, where the hangups, where's the fear? What are you worried about? What's the concern?
Yeah.
And then, well, I don't know the process. Okay, great. And then we can, well, here's how I would do it. Right. And I know with my kids, I ask them, I could tell you how to do it. I could show you how to do it. I can do it with you. Like if we're going through this, or do you want to just go and do it on your own and see how it goes? And so I give them that option to decide for themselves what they need, right? Because I could tell them how to do it from my perspective, but what
Mhm.
is it that they need to do from their perspective?
Mhm.
Like you said, maybe I'm okay with this and this and this, but I don't know how to pay for that pizza,
Right.
right? I could do this, I could do this, but I don't know how to do that. So let's figure out how we can, really, um, assassinate the complexity. Let's make it easy
Mhm.
because it's not that hard. What's hard is the fear of the unknown. Once you're done with this, you're gonna be like, oh, that's easy. I can do that again now.
Right.
And that becomes that resilience that we begin to build. It's
Mhm.
always scary the first time. Even for adults, it's scary the first time we go through and do things we haven't done before, probably.
Well, exactly. If you don't know what to expect, think of everybody probably has a situation recently where they were doing something they didn't know at
Mhm.
all what to expect. And you kind of, as adults, we've had enough of these experiences that most of the time we still kind of can just function and go with it and be like, oh, I'm sure it'll be fine. It'll be just like my last doctor's appointment that was kind of similar, but it was different. Like they can find, like, the method of learning where like they can find something that it correlates to in their mind. But, just like how like a little kid walking down the street who sees a dog for the first time. Well, not a dog for the first time, but they see a dog and it's like a big dog. In the past, they've only seen little dogs. Well, their minds, that's how they learn, is because they're like, oh, it has a tail, it has ears, it has this, it barks, or blah, 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 right? They find the similarities. And so that's what we as adults can do easily because we've
Yeah.
had so many experiences. But these younger ones, they haven't had all these life experiences. And so that's where I do find there's like a lot of conflict with parents getting so mad. And it's like, but because they're just frustrated and they don't understand why the kid can't do what it is they want him to do. But it's like you're
Right.
saying, we have to break it apart.
Yeah. 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 That is really, really fantastic. Giving the kids the option and the voice to share their concerns, their experience, non-experience. That will play really, really big, parents, for you and your families. Because once I understand their position, once you understand where they're coming from, then there's no reason for me to get angry because they're not doing it. Because I'm coming from my perspective. Like, why don't you just do this? It's super easy. Just do it. Why? Because it's easy for me.
Mhm.
And I'm not keeping their perspective in alignment with the task at hand.
Mhm.
And so while they're scared or frustrated from not having the experience, I'm frustrated that they're not doing it because I know it's easy.
Right. And I do feel like we need to kind of put a fence around this a little bit,
Yep.
a boundary, which I think you said earlier, but we have to be okay with if things do go wrong.
Hmm.
So if there is some type of a failure or catastrophe, like what's the worst that you can screw up by ordering a pizza? Really nothing. Maybe
Yeah.
your credit card gets hacked or something. I don't know. Like I can't even think of
Yeah.
something. But it reminded me of when we were talking earlier at the initial part of the conversation with the dependence part and independence part. I was, picturing all these things in my head. And I was remembering when my youngest was little, I used to from a very early age, like let her pour her own drinks, like was it
Hmm.
milk or juice or whatever. And I had an extended family member come visit and they're like, oh my God, let me help you. Let me help you. And I said, no, 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 she can do it. And I realized like he's having this freak out because he thought like, oh, if the juice spills, that's going to be messy. It'll be sticky. We have to clean it up. Maybe she'll feel bad. Maybe we're losing juice. So we have to go buy more juice, right? Because I was thinking like, why is he freaking out? And
Yeah.
I realized in my head, I was perfectly okay with the spilt juice. Guess what? If it spilled, she would help clean it up. It's not like it's a chore for me. It's a learning experience. The worst case
Yeah.
scenario is that it's kind of sticky, right? But that's
Hmm.
little kids, little problems. Then we've got big kids, big problems. So if
That's right.
we're like looking at it, anytime there's a situation of safety, like I, do feel pretty strongly. Obviously, you have to have that fence, the barrier, the boundary, like what's okay, what's not okay. And I get that we do have to set them free, and we have to trust, and we have to, lay everything out for them.
Mhm.
But as far as that engagement, they have to be engaged in whatever it is. You're right, like 100% to, um, it's a balancing act. Let's just say, I
Mhm.
think it depends on
Mhm.
the situation and the kid and the their confidence level, your confidence level. But ultimately, my point was just that whatever the consequence is, you need to kind of be okay, but you also need to kind of like let them free. I guess I'm saying both things at the same time. It's kind of opposites.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think you're spot on with that. I think that's great. I have to be willing to let go for them to go and do. Otherwise, I'm going to keep them in that dependency in a negative way, right? Because then that leads me into being into that entitlement space.
Right.
So I have to make sure that I'm okay with a little mess,
Right.
with a little spilled juice, because it's that learning experience, and
Right.
we can clean it up together. And now we've just learned. And next time when I pour the juice, now they will be a little bit more careful in doing so, and continue to learn and grow in that process. And I
Mhm.
think that is so key, right? We've
Mhm.
got to be able to let the kids experience some mess to a degree.
Right. Yeah, but can you see how like some people might not realize they're creating that dependency intention subconsciously? Like a parent
Yes.
might for have other reasons why they still want their child to be dependent. And so it's this vicious cycle because they're yelling at them like, hey, you need to be able to do this. But on a subconscious level, they enjoy or they get they have meaning out of still being the parent who does for them. How the being
Mhm.
the parent who is, it becomes like it's their own self like worth that they're really kind of looking for. And they're like, well, I feel good about myself when I'm a mom. So I never want to stop driving my teenager to school. I keep using driving a lot lately as an analogy because my daughter's learning how to drive. Well, what if I just did a terrible job teaching my daughter how to drive? What if I'm like, she'll never pass her driver's test because I'm not helping her. I'm not getting her hours. They have to have a certain number of hours. Well,
Right.
if he truly never learned how to drive, what is this what's unintended but kind of intended consequence of that is, oh, then I get to drive her forever and I get to feel like the mom, and or I get to spend more time with her, or she makes
Mhm.
me feel good about myself, right? It's like, what is that really doing for yourself if you're not like pushing them out of the nest?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that goes back to what we said at the very beginning of the show is we all agreed we were not going to raise dependent kids,
Mm,
and we were going to continue to give them those opportunities to explore through life. And sometimes it can be life can be scary, friends, and what we want to land in this place now that we're getting to naturally is the word empowerment,
mm,
because we've moved from dependency through entitlement, through engagement, and the willingness to engage in for their own lives. And I have to, in my engagement, let things go and allow that to happen for my kids to be empowered. And there's one thing that I've always said with my kids: it's not that I don't trust you. I know you've been raised well, with great intentions, with ability to learn, with the ability to fail, with the ability to go back through the process and understand it and make changes and try again. I'm not worried about you. It could be something that's an outside influence that is happening that I want to make sure that you have thought through that process and understand what could or will happen in that situation or circumstance, so that you feel confident and empowered to stand up for yourself, to do the right thing, whatever that case might be.
mhm,
So when we're looking at the empowerment piece of a family, let's go into this. So the empowerment piece here is everybody able to make decisions, able to work through the processes that we've set as a family unit, to be able to do things, to rely on each other for help when needed,
mhm.
and to take care of business and understand and learn and grow through the process. Now my kids are like, oh man, I forgot to take out the trash. And so the family chat will go off. Hey, is there anybody around? I got stuck doing this. Can somebody help out with the trash? Boom, 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 boom.
Mhm.
That's a whole different scenario from the dependency on someone else and something else, to, hey, I need some support here. And that empowerment piece then comes into play, like, yep, I can step in and do that. Or sure, I got your back.
Mm.
And then in return, if I ever need something, I know that you'll be there for me because I'm helping you. And we've got this push pull of win win going on within the family, that everyone is contributing in a way that we're going to get great results over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And we're there in that support process.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing that came up for me as you were talking about that is I sometimes see people who are wanting so badly to create kids who are so independent that it's almost like to the level of harsh. And
Yeah.
it's almost to the level of they're forgetting that their kid is a human,
Mm-hmm.
and that
Mm-hmm.
humans make mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's almost like so extreme. They always say, oh, don't rescue your kid if they go to school and they forgot their lunch, just let them be hungry, let them have the natural consequence. And I get that if your child leaves their lunch home, 4 out of 5 days a week, then maybe they need to learn that lesson. Maybe they do need to go hungry one day.
Right.
Well, let me tell you, I'll give an example of one of my own kids. My oldest is extremely responsible. She has a job. She's on the track team. She makes basically straight A's. And one day recently, she forgot something for track practice, like something she needed, like a specific shirt or whatever it was. I forgot. And you know what? She's never done that before. She's almost 16 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
you know what? Her school's right 10 minutes away. I'm like, sure, honey, I'll drop it off. No problem. Right. Yeah. There are some parents who won't do that because they think, well, you need to learn and you need to learn your lesson. I'm going to let you get in trouble for that. You know what? She's a kid. She's human. She's exhausted. She's doing so well. She's achieving academically. She's achieving in every area of her life. And guess what? You know why I feel pretty strongly about that being a good choice? Because I forget stuff sometimes. And do I wish somebody could rescue me sometimes? Yes.
Oh.
Right? If ever anybody could do me a favor every once in a while, that would be phenomenal. You know why? We're human and we mess up and we make mistakes. So I think what you're saying is like empower. Yes, we empower all we want. And if you do need some backup every once in a while, that's okay.
Absolutely. So well said. And I appreciate that. There has to be some realism or realistic expectations because we're human. We're going to mess up. We're going to forget things. Like you said, we do it all the time. But how can we then go into the people that we can rely on, which is our family? And as you were talking, I was thinking of a young girl. I was doing a teen camp in Ohio a couple summers ago, and here she is as a sophomore in high school. And her mom just kicked her out and said, good luck, you're on your own. Right. So in that, she had to empower herself to take on all of these roles and responsibilities of which a kid her age shouldn't have to do in that time frame in her life. Like she should have a support structure there as a backup for her. And so I say that because parents, we really want you to understand, do what's best for your family. Do what you feel is best for you, taking into consideration all the people within your family unit, that you come to this understanding together, that it's not a top-down directive, that it's a conversation that's happening with all the members on what do we think is going to work best. Because that's where you get this conversation that happens where I get to understand what my kids are thinking and feeling, and they get to hear it from my perspective. And when we can get into sharing that from each other, it makes this process so much easier because my kids are so different and each one of them's needs are so different. And my wife is so different. And when we can have that understanding, it's going to bring into clarity and perspective and realism into how our family is going to operate together.
Yeah. And also what I'm seeing is, you have to have a level of vulnerability when you're a family member. And you also, what it also brings is connection. So when you're talking about this, think about if this kid is like a random kid, a hypothetical kid is like super independent from the time he's 2. He could do all the bathroom and all the tying the shoes and everything. And he goes out. Well, then someday, say he wants to have a family and he has a wife. Well, if he never relies on his wife for anything because he's always done everything, then that's completely kind of, sorry for lack of a better word, handicapping him to have that vulnerability of, oh, wife, I would love it if you blah, 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 or that would be amazing. Or like bringing that connection and that vulnerability that we do need to help each other and have an interdependence with each other.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love it, and I think within our family chat, we'll say, listen, there's no dinner tonight. We're exhausted. We're beat. You guys are on your own. There's leftovers. If you want to order a pizza, you're on your own. And they're like, cool, no problem. We got it. And I love that we've gotten to that place of structure in our family of which we can do that with that support. So friends and family around the world, first of all, thanks again for joining us today. We hope this conversation was as valuable to you as it was as fun for us to talk about these developments through dependency, entitlement, engagement, and landing in empowerment. To find Laura Ollinger, where is the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, I love it. If people just want to come to my website, positivelyhealthycoaching.com, or find me on social media at positivelyhealthycoaching.com. And yes, I invite you, if any moms, to join my Facebook group, the Positively Healthy Mom Group. But yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome. Thanks, Laura. And of course, you guys know Energetic Life Now. You can find me on all the social media feeds. And just really love and appreciate that you guys were here today with us. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish Radio Network. Please check it out at spanglishworld.ca for all the news and programming. Spanglish World, watch it, hear it, read it, download it, live it. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.